A continuación, con todos ustedes, Mark Verheul. Gracias.
Dear colleagues, dear friends, dear students, dear fellow experts, not only here in beautiful Granada, but also calling in from abroad, a very warm welcome on this last day of this wonderful conference.
Queridos amigos, queridos asistentes al Congreso, compañeros, compañeras profesionales, muchas gracias por estar aquí. Bienvenidos a este último día de este maravilloso Congreso.
My name is Mark Verheul. I'm from The Hague in the Netherlands. And in my daily life, I'm the owner of my own training and consultancy firm in International Protocol. And I had the pleasure to be the chief of protocol of the Invictus Games in The Hague last week.
Se llama Mark Verheul y es de La Haya, de los Países Bajos, y tiene el honor de ser el jefe de protocolo de los Juegos Invictus que se celebraron en La Haya.
Yeah. In the next half hour, I would like to give you some glimpses behind the scenes of this very inspiring sports event.
En los próximos momentos os daré unas pinceladas sobre lo que pasa detrás del escenario de estos Juegos.
Because how it all began, what are the Invictus Games? It is an initiative of Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, after he was on a mission twice as a soldier to Afghanistan.
¿Cómo nacieron estos Juegos? ¿Por qué se fundaron? Pues fue una iniciativa del príncipe Harry después de que estuvo destinado en Afganistán 2 veces.
During those missions, he encountered himself what it meant to wounded servicemen and women, like to recover and to still be able to kind of live at home with their friends and family after everything that they suffered and experienced while at war.
Durante sus misiones en Afganistán, él se dio cuenta de la dificultad que suponía para ellos el volver a su vida una vez haber visto el horror y haber visto y sufrido las cosas en las misiones, aparte de lesiones.
So in 2013, he was experiencing the Warrior Games in the United States, which is a sports event that is helping veterans and military servicemen and women in their recovery from their disabilities.
Sí, en 2013 en Estados Unidos él asistió a los Warrior Games, que son unos juegos para ayudar para personas que han sufrido lesiones en la guerra o en sus misiones.
And he decided to come up with an international component, an international version of those Warrior Games. And the Invictus Games were born in 2014 in London, then in 2016 in Orlando, in 2017 in Toronto in Canada. Then went down under in Sydney 2018, and then originally it was scheduled to take place in The Hague in 2020.
Entonces él se inspiró en estos Warrior Games de Estados Unidos y quiso ponerles un componente internacional, y así fue como nacieron y se celebraron por primera vez en Londres en 2014, después en Orlando en el 16, en Toronto en el 17, en Sydney en el 18, este año en La Haya, y están pensados para volverse a realizar en Düsseldorf en el 23.
But then indeed in 2020, COVID-19 affected everything in the world, so that's why it had to be postponed twice, and that's why it took place last week.
Bueno, como todos sabemos, debido a la pandemia, los Juegos tuvieron que posponerse 2 años y por eso.
And to give you an overview of what happened, I would like to start with a quote of the founder of the Invictus Games, of Prince Harry, talking about those servicemen and women. They are ordinary people doing extraordinary things. That is something we can all aspire to. You do not have to be a veteran who has fought back from injury to be inspired by the Invictus spirit.
¿Cómo comenzó todo? Bueno, son gente ordinaria haciendo cosas extraordinarias. Eso es algo a lo que todos podemos aspirar. No es necesario ser un veterano que ha luchado y que lucha después de sufrir una lesión para sentirse inspirado por el espíritu Invictus.
Well, let's have a look at the after movie of what the Invictus spirit looks like.
Vamos a ver ahora una pequeña película sobre lo que significa los Invictus.
Invictus, are you ready? We see you. You have the heart of Invictus.
You can feel that anticipation all around. Just look at the focus. And they're off.
My kids were in the crowd and they saw their mum run. They've not seen me run, and that's why I'm here.
What a race, and that is the Invictus spirit.
We're so appreciative of these guys coming out here helping me out. That's what these games are all about.
Incredible. These are moments that are going to resonate right around the world.
The obstacles that people have overcome to get to Invictus, and then if they win a medal, I'm going to be more happy about that than if I win.
Keep believing, we can do this.
Arjen!
And my word, what it means to the Ukrainian team.
No matter what life throws at you, you just pick yourself up and just go for it.
The games is really about just learning what you can do, not what you can't. Being the best version that you can be.
Jump in the water! Buffalo! Oh, he's taken him out! This must hurt.
Never give up.
This gentleman is absolutely extraordinary.
That's an order.
Has he done it? He has! He's done it by 2 meters!
I want to show to the wounded warriors that we can continue to live.
Wedding proposal. Isn't that brilliant?
Running out, it is now or never. The medal is the prize. But this is about so much more than that.
To all of you here tonight, I am honoured to have served alongside you. Thank you for your service, and we'll see you in Düsseldorf.
What a week, and what an honour it's been to share their stories. Good night.
Well, a true honor it was indeed to be serving for this wonderful, inspiring event, and it made you very humble and also overwhelmed with all the personal stories of those competitors and their friends and family.
Fue para mí, por supuesto, un honor y un gran placer poder participar en estos juegos que habéis visto.
20 participating nations, including Team Ukraine. And of course, at this stage, and also in the preparations in the past couple of months, it has been a roller coaster and a very bumpy road, bumpy ride to make sure that everyone was able to join, including Team Ukraine.
20 países participaron y entre ellos Ucrania. Y os podéis imaginar que fue una montaña rusa. Los 2 meses de preparación fue complicadísimo. Hubo muchas dificultades para que se lograra.
And even though, of course, the competitors are the main VIPs at our event, you could also imagine that from all those participating nations, they wanted to send dignitaries, like ministers of defense, chiefs of defense, their ambassadors, some royalty, all of them coming over to the games. And for us, it was the main challenge to make sure that we had that balance between the political component and the sports competition.
Como os podéis imaginar, los que participan en los juegos son nuestros verdaderos VIPs, ¿verdad? Pero todas las delegaciones quieren enviar también pues, a sus políticos, a sus autoridades, a sus miembros de las casas reales y tenemos que buscar un equilibrio para que no cojan todo el protagonismo.
Because Afghanistan is also one of the 20 participating nations. But after what happened last year in July and August, that the Taliban took over again in Kabul, obviously the soldiers that were working together with the allied forces could not join under the Afghanistan flag at the moment.
Afganistán es uno de los países participantes, pero claro, después de lo que pasó el verano pasado, cuando los talibanes tomaron Kabul, pues no se pudo lograr que participaran.
Yeah. So to make all the visits for this entire week work in this enormous park in The Hague, we did a lot of preparation, obviously.
Tuvieron que hacer, obviamente, muchísimas preparaciones para que todo esto pudiera tener lugar en este enorme parque en La Haya.
To make sure that all the VIPs had their separate entrance apart from the competitors and all the thousands of visitors per day. That they also had their own hospitality lounges close to the stadium, rather than the public catering facilities elsewhere in the park.
Era muy complicado alojar a todas las personas de forma que estuvieran cerca del recinto y no tuvieran que pudieran acceder y fuera todo sencillo.
And of course, with all those delegations going from one place to another in the park, we really needed to have a big team of volunteers who were escorting all the dignitary visitors.
Claro, y entonces tenían que contar con un gran equipo para ayudarles a llevar y traer a las personas involucradas de un sitio para otro en ese recinto tan enorme.
So those volunteers came from all around the world, including from Buenos Aires. Taina, she's also here attending the conference, so it's very nice to see her also here and also last week in The Hague.
Entonces, estos voluntarios venían de un montón de países, incluido Buenos Aires, y una persona que participó y le gustó pues, poder verla tanto allí como aquí ahora en el Congreso.
Apart from the geopolitical situation in the world and with Ukraine, we also had to deal with some logistical and protocol issues for the first time due to the fact that the Duke of Sussex and Meghan were having their first public appearance outside the United States after they stepped down as senior royals at the Royal Court in the UK.
Aparte de las dificultades por la situación actual que tenemos en Ucrania, también nos encontraron con que era la primera vez que el príncipe Harry y Meghan hacían una aparición fuera de los Estados Unidos después de haber dejado sus obligaciones como parte de la familia real británica.
So there are no royal highnesses anymore. They are referred to as Sir or Ma'am, but still, of course, how to deal with them, how to treat them in their respectful manner as founder of the Invictus Games Foundation.
Claro, entonces ya no son altezas reales, pero aún así tenemos que seguir en los juegos, tenían que seguir dirigiéndose a ellos de una manera especial y en este caso él principalmente como fundador de estos Juegos Invictus.
You can imagine that the team of the Duke and the Duchess were very worried or very stressed about that first moment, the first image, the first picture of the hundreds of international media that were there. Like, how would it be perceived? How would it look like? Should it be something formal or rather informal?
Claro, ambos, los duques, estaban muy preocupados de cómo se vería ante la prensa esa primera fotografía, esa primera aparición después de lo que había pasado y se preguntaban si debería ser una situación más formal o más informal.
And due to the fact that we were having the mantra of competitors first, so that it was all about competitors and not really about the dignitaries, we decided that first walk is with 2 Dutch competitors rather than with, for example, the Dutch Prime Minister or the chairman of the local organizing committee.
Como el mantra de la organización de estos juegos, además, es que los protagonistas son los propios jugadores y no los políticos o los dignatarios, pues se decidió que los primeros en aparecer siempre fueran ellos, los participantes.
And then, of course, afterwards, when they arrived at the area, they were greeted by, indeed, the Dutch officials. The Minister of Defense, the Chief of Defense, and the Mayor of the city of The Hague, right in front of the nation's home where the welcoming reception took place.
Pero, por supuesto, sí, cuando llegaron fueron recibidos por todas las autoridades, como es costumbre.
And then escorted inside, like by the mayor, because he was hosting that welcoming reception. And of course, as host, you have your guests of honor to your right-hand side. So that's why the mayor to the left, and then the Duke and the Duchess on his right.
Aquí vemos cómo les escolta el alcalde en su entrada y él cede su puesto al duque y a la duquesa.
During the opening ceremony, like in the main stadium, it was also a kind of an informal approach, where the main focus was on the competitors rather than on the international dignitaries.
En el auditorio también era un enfoque muy informal donde los competidores son realmente los más importantes.
Before I move on to that ceremony, like you see also the parade of flags coming in of the different participating nations. And throughout the park, we also had the flags of them lined up in a straight line. And like from a protocol perspective, like you normally do that in alphabetical order, in either English or French. And the Invictus Games Foundation had the French order of precedence in the languages. So they started with Afghanistan and Alemania, and then towards the end to Ukraine.
Como es costumbre, para ordenar todas las banderas se suele utilizar el orden alfabético, que puede ser en inglés, en francés. En este caso se hizo en francés, empezando por Afganistán.
But let's go back to that stadium. Like right in front of the stage, you see all the competitors seated, and all our VIPs were behind in the grandstand.
Claro, aquí en el estadio podemos ver cómo en el centro y en el papel protagonista están los competidores y los dignatarios y las autoridades están detrás.
Except for the very first row, because there we had the officials who also participated in the program. So for them it wouldn't make sense to come from behind the scenes or from in the back end of the stadium towards the stage.
Excepto el caso del presentador que tuvo que entrar, podía entrar por delante o por detrás, pero accedió de esa manera.
So indeed we had the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, like the CEO of the Invictus Games Foundation, the team manager of the Dutch team, and the CEO of the main sponsor of the event, Jaguar Land Rover.
Están ahí I'm sorry, can you repeat the authorities? El duque y la duquesa, y después.
The CEO of the Invictus Games Foundation.
El director de la fundación de los Juegos Invictus.
The team manager of the Dutch team.
El director del equipo de los Países Bajos.
Sí, and the CEO of the main sponsor, Jaguar
y el
Land
director
Rover.
del sponsor mayoritario de los Juegos.
And there's still one empty chair for the Dutch Prime Minister, who was actually on stage doing his speech while this picture was taken.
Entonces el primer ministro estaba en ese momento en el escenario cuando se tomó esta fotografía.
Because indeed, at the speeches on stage by the Duke and the Duchess, the patron, like that was also their first public speech that they made after stepping down.
Bueno, eso que fue su primer discurso después de haber dejado sus obligaciones.
So protocol-wise, it was also, okay, if they are not senior royals anymore at the royal court in the UK, how should we deal with that with our royal family in the Netherlands? How, for example, would they be treated by the Dutch king or Princess Margriet?
Claro, entonces era una incógnita decidir cuando ellos ya no forman parte de la familia real británica, cómo tratarles cuando interactúen con la familia real de los Países Bajos.
Because indeed, His Majesty the King of the Netherlands, you see him here, like on the royal row in the grandstand, with all the officials, and you see the chiefs of defense and their staff right behind them.
Claro, ahí vemos al rey de los Países Bajos y rodeado de todas sus autoridades.
But of course, there would also needed to be a welcoming, a meet and greet with the king and the Duke of Sussex, somewhere throughout the games.
Claro, pero también tenían que organizar un momento de recibimiento para los duques.
So indeed, we made sure that the king was also visiting one of the finals of the wheelchair basketball. And here, welcomed first of all by the chairman of the local organizing committee as host of the games in The Hague.
Claro, entonces se tuvieron que asegurarse de que el rey llegara a asistir a algún acto relevante, y en este caso es la final de baloncesto, y está siendo recibido por el jefe del equipo, el entrenador del equipo de baloncesto.
And then indeed afterwards the handshake with the Duke of Sussex.
Y después saludó al duque de Sussex.
And that picture for the first time with both royals, with the chairman as host in the center, then his guest of honor, the King of the Netherlands, to his right-hand side, and the Duke of Sussex to the left.
Claro, y esta es la primera fotografía en la que aparecen los dos, el duque de Sussex y el rey.
And due to the informal nature of the event, like the dress code was smart casual for them, not dark suit.
Claro, ya que tienen un tono tan informal, pues no, la etiqueta no marcaba que fueran de traje oscuro.
Because that it was an informal setting, you can see over here, like they were having a lot of fun.
Como podéis ver, es informal. Aquí se les nota que están pasándoselo muy bien.
And here we didn't want to have the chairman in the center, because we wanted to have that image that the Duke and the King were sitting next to each other.
Claro, y aquí se quisieron asegurar de que el rey y el duque se les viera juntos para lanzar ese mensaje, ¿no?
Great. And for example, the ambassador of the United States, well, very informally cheering for Team United States, because the wheelchair basketball finals was between the US and the Netherlands.
La final fue entre los Países Bajos y Estados Unidos, y ahí se ve como el embajador discretamente anima a su delegación.
So again, even with diplomats and royals, like when we normally deal with them in The Hague, of course it's much more formal, but the Invictus Games made it really like the spirit of informality, and not that it was about them, but about what was going on the playing field.
Nuevamente, los Invictus se centran en un tono informal y en que los protagonistas sean los participantes.
And also the means of transportation. The Duke of Sussex on his bicycle, going very Dutch, with his entourage behind him, including security, obviously, but like no formal arrangements related to transportation. Again, the look and feel of the games requested a certain way of moving from one place to another rather than in a full motorcade.
Entonces, incluso en los transportes, pues se quiere dar ese tono informal, y entonces aquí podemos ver cómo el príncipe Harry, a una manera muy de los Países Bajos, pues va en bicicleta seguido de su equipo de seguridad.
And here you see it as well, like the formal and informal components getting together. A handshake with the Duke of Sussex while in his polo shirt, with the vice chairman of the military committee of NATO, while he was there with his entire NATO delegation.
Aquí vemos otra vez el contraste entre lo formal y lo informal, cuando el príncipe Harry en un polo de camiseta saluda y da la mano al vicepresidente de algo de la OTAN.
Yeah, everything was possible in that respect, because here that group picture with all those chiefs of defense and military attaché at NATO in Brussels, the formality versus the informality.
Sí, aquí vemos todos los militares con su formalidad en contraste con la informalidad del evento.
And here the presidential delegation of the United States. The White House sent the Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, who also was presidential candidate in the 2020 elections of the United States.
Aquí vemos la delegación de Estados Unidos que mandaron como representante a Pete Buttigieg, que es el... Can you repeat the title?
The Secretary of Transportation
El
and
secretario de
former presidential candidate.
Transportes, y que también se presentó a las elecciones con Joe Biden.
So again, quite informally dressed because the nature of the event. And he really wanted to meet with the competitors. It was not really about meeting all the dignitaries. They really came to support Team US, or for example, the Dutch Prime Minister behind the scenes to cheer for the Dutch team.
Claro, aquí vemos cómo las autoridades realmente a quienes querían saludar es a los participantes, a los jugadores, no tanto a los dignatarios o a las autoridades.
And the same counted for our royal family. Here, Princess Margriet, the honorary chairperson of the Invictus Games, The Hague, in a very informal setting with the Dutch team.
Claro, y aquí también vemos a la princesa Margarita rodeada de también en un entorno muy informal, rodeada de los jugadores.
Or His Majesty the King, like in an informal setting, talking to all the Dutch competitors. So moving from one table in one of the hospitality lounges to the other, so that he had the opportunity to speak in around 45 minutes to the entire team of the Netherlands, comprising of 30 competitors.
El rey también en 45 minutos quiso reunirse e ir cambiando de mesa en mesa para poder hablar con todos los miembros de los equipos de los Países Bajos.
Yeah. Like my most memorable event or moment in this week was dealing with Team Ukraine.
El momento más memorable para él fue la victoria de Ucrania.
Because from Ukraine, the Deputy Minister of Veteran Affairs was joining the team. And she was supposed to provide a pep-up talk the day prior to the opening ceremony in a private room for the Ukrainian team.
Porque uno de los ministros se suponía que iba a ir a darles una charla motivadora justo antes, el día antes de la competición.
So the entire team with their friends and family were expecting a talk from her.
Y todo el equipo estaba esperando un discurso de ella, de la ministra.
But what they didn't know was when they entered in the room, there was a big screen like this, because we arranged for a live meeting with President Zelensky calling in from Kiev.
Pero lo que no sabían era que cuando entraron en la sala se iban a encontrar una pantalla con una videollamada con el presidente Zelensky.
And sitting in that room, not talking a word of Ukrainian, but seeing like the vibe and the non-verbal communication between the president on the screen and the team and their friends and family in the state or in the room, with the tears and a laugh, like it said it all.
Que aunque no entendían ni una palabra de ucraniano, pues para todo el equipo el poder estar allí en la sala y ver las caras de emoción y las lágrimas de los miembros de la delegación de Ucrania, pues fue muy, muy emocionante.
Like no matter with how many gold medals you return home, the president said you are gold already, due to the fact that you made it to The Hague.
Claro, entonces sin importar cuántas medallas fueran a llevarse para casa, para el presidente Zelensky quedó claro que ya habían ganado el oro, solo por haber llegado allí.
Because in the preparations for these games, like in the 50 days prior to it, 4 competitors passed away in the conflict.
Porque es que encima, además, en los 50 días anteriores a la celebración de los Juegos habían fallecido 4 de los miembros del equipo en el conflicto.
So sometimes you were really dealing with the nitty-gritty protocol details on who sits where and who comes in first, and then half an hour later you receive a message from Kiev that another competitor passed away in eastern Ukraine. So the flow of emotions was, well, indescribable.
Claro, entonces para el equipo de protocolo, cuando estaban decidiendo los sitios donde colocar a cada uno, pues un momento tenían organizado el plan y al siguiente pues les recibían una llamada de Kiev diciéndoles que uno de los participantes pues lamentablemente había fallecido y claro, la situación.
So even though the team was not complete, and if they, for example, couldn't be with a full team in one of the competitions, there was no problem, because then someone from another country just stood in as a side-in, just to make sure that they still could compete in all the competitions.
Y que precisamente por eso, pues incluso aunque tuvieran bajas en los equipos y no fueran suficientes para poder participar en las competiciones, pues no pasaba nada, porque siempre había alguno de otra delegación dispuesto a tomar su lugar y hacer que pudieran jugar, ¿no? Y participar.
So that really showed their brotherhood and resilience, which is truly the Invictus spirit.
Entonces, en este caso es donde se mostró el verdadero sentimiento de hermandad, que es el lema y el principal de los Juegos Invictus.
And then at the closing ceremony, when they had the traditional handover from one host city to the other, even though we had both mayors of the city of The Hague and of Düsseldorf, again, the handover was done by the competitors, not by the mayors themselves, because it was really about them.
Claro, entonces cuando se pasa el testigo a la próxima sede, que será Düsseldorf, también se suele hacer tradicionalmente entre dignatarios, pero en este caso también en ese tono informal se hace entre un competidor a otro.
So the Invictus Game spirit continues. So see you all, hopefully in Düsseldorf next year. Like, if you are able to make it, it is a wonderful, wonderful, inspiring event to also watch and get a glimpse and pay respect for those heroes.
Y por supuesto el espíritu Invictus continúa, así que os invito a todos a participar, a asistir, si os es posible, porque es una experiencia maravillosa y que merece la pena y apoyar con ello a estas personas.
Thank you very much for your attention.